Hi everyone, my name's Lesley O'Toole. I'm a regular contributor Backstage magazine. I am delighted to introduce, first of all, the two young stars of the film, the fantastic Keith Williams and Sophia Mitri Schloss. And the film's writer, director, the uber-talented Megan Griffiths.
Nice audience.
Yes, they obviously enjoyed it. So let's start from the beginning. This film has been in the works for a long time, and I know that you were involved with Sundance Labs, but you've been working on it for 10 years. So can you tell us a little of the history?
Yeah, so started writing this, so it's technically 9, although at this point, 10-ish. So we started writing this script in 2009. Lacey Levitt, who's our producer, who's in the room somewhere, she took it to the Sundance Producing Lab in 2011, and we took it to a bunch of different markets and stuff, trying to get funding and putting everything in place, and that took us up to 2017 when we shot, and then we just shot it at the beginning of last year, and then took it to South by Southwest earlier this year.
So where did you shoot it? How long was the shoot? How did you fund it? All of that good stuff.
So we shot in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle. I live in Seattle. Sophia lives in Seattle. Keith does not, but he did for a little while. And let's see, how long did you say? So we shot for 19 days, which is fairly short, but especially when you have 2 actors who can only work 8 hours a day. So that was a challenge, but we got it done. And then in terms of financing, we found we had a executive producer who was the sole financier. She was someone who we'd been talking to for years about the project, and the things just sort of finally aligned and fell into place at the end of 2016. She came on, and we just kind of ran with it, went from there.
So the cast is obviously incredible. You have some great adult names. I mean, I've been a Melanie Lynskey fan for years.
You and me both.
Yeah.
I saw Heavenly Creatures in the theater in
94.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if you guys saw Heavenly Creatures, in which she starred with Kate Winslet. It was her film breakthrough, and she was absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, go rent it if you haven't seen it. I just rewatched it earlier this year for the first time in probably decades, and it holds up fantastic. Peter Jackson, one of his early films, and it's the filmmaking and the acting and the subject matter is pretty intense, but you just watch Sadie, so you'll be fine.
Yeah. So I mean, how did you? I mean, we'll obviously get onto these, fantastically dynamic, talented kids, but how did you get all those adult names for it? Did they all read the script and say, I'm in?
So Melanie Lynskey was our the first person who became attached to the movie, and that was, I was such a fan of hers, and Lacey and I had been talking about her for years, and our mutual friend Mark Duplass had worked with her on Melanie on Togetherness, and so he offered to make an introduction. So that was very helpful. And then we worked with a casting director named Amy Renee, and she, reached out to all these other amazing actors that we had been, dreaming about, and that kind of came into, I think people just responded to the script, and also a lot of people responded to the idea of working with Melanie, because she's what we like to call actor bait in the directing business. And so people like working with her and want to work with her. So that was really helpful. And then, it just kind of came together. And then Amy was a big advocate for Sophia, who we had seen in this movie, late 1974, and that she was in our backyard, so to speak, and living in Seattle. So we were kind of amazed that we found our Sadie so close to home. We thought we'd scour the earth for her.
Yes. So this is your second lead. So can you talk a little about how you started acting? You've worked, quite a lot, but yes, you played the lead in Lane 74. It's you were a child on a commune in the 70s, but obviously carry that film also. This is very different, but but just, talk a little bit about how you started acting. You were only 15 years old and, an incredible talent, obviously.
Thank you. Yeah. I always loved movies, like every kid who loves movies, but I always felt this, I guess I always felt a really special connection to certain characters, and I would just memorize the movies and recite them and do the voices and the, I felt like it really fit me from early on before I thought about it being what I would do, or, you know, if I wanted to do it. So I took theater classes in Seattle at Seattle Children's Theater. I don't know if there's any people from Seattle besides my parents, but yeah, Seattle. And that was so great. And I took those classes. They weren't really acting classes, but they were just for really little kids, like imaginary draw a picture and go to this fantasy world. And I loved that. And I always loved imagination and telling stories, and that was a big part of my family growing up as well. It was just storytelling, and so I feel like it was really natural for me when I was little, and so I started getting interested in films and, you know, what I would watch, and so my parents started looking for some student films for me to audition for just in the Seattle area, and I started doing those, and that was so fun because you get to learn about the whole process because they're learning as well. So that was perfect for me. And then I just went more from there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So let's just hear a little about your background, Keith, because yours was slightly different in that you had an older brother who was an actor, and you moved here and you were like, I want to get in on this. This seems like fun. And you booked a commercial within 2 months of moving to Los Angeles. You're clearly a natural too. So just tell us a little about how it started for you.
Well, it started as we came to California when I was 5, and my older brother came to act. And when he was acting, he started going to classes and stuff, and he was really good. So I wanted to do it too. And then I started taking classes. I started taking all kinds of like acting classes and comedy classes and all that. And then, like you said, in like 2 months of moving there, I already booked a commercial. And it was my first one, so it was like super fun for me. And after that, I started just getting callback and auditions and auditions.
Sounds terrible.
You guys can relate, right?
And then you've been working regularly on The Last Man on Earth. I mean, you were on
Yes.
that for a long time. What sort of experience was that for you?
It was really fun. Well, I didn't really have that many lines, actually, because I was the quiet one in the group. But the cool thing was I have facial expressions. So that was my main like go-to thing on that set.
You want to give us a few? Show us some.
Seriously?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Okay, just like say something. Say something.
Okay. I don't know. Megan, say something. She's your director.
Audience.
All right. Surprised.
You're hired.
Wait, what?
I just also should say that the reason that we found Keith is that I had been producing a film called Sweet Cheeks that hasn't happened yet, that with Lesley and Amy Renee, who was our casting director on Sadie, was also the casting director on that, and we had auditioned Keith for a role in that when he was 2 years younger. I think you were, let's see, it might have been 3 years, because I think you were 6 when you auditioned for Sweet Cheeks.
Wow.
And so we asked if Amy, kind of found him, tracked him down, and asked him to read for Sadie based on his audition for Sweet Cheeks, because we loved him so much from that audition.
So you've been in his corner for 5 years. That's amazing. So you were on board first, presumably, Sophia, for this. Were you cast before Keith?
Yes, I was. But I was cast after most of the I think most of the adults had already signed on, and as Megan was saying, Melanie had been part of the project for years,
Yeah,
really
2.5
long time.
years before we started shooting.
So I think I came after the adults, and then Keith shortly after that.
Yeah, it all came together Melanie was on board for 2.5 years, but everyone else in the cast came on board between probably November in December, and then we shot in January. So it was all quick at the end, that when everyone came together. And we hadn't really been searching. We'd actually been looking for a Sadie for, 7 years at that point, but not getting attached to anybody because they would just age out of it so quickly. But
also because you hadn't found anyone who blew you away, and you might think you would want to wait. As you obviously
I never really got that far with it because I was just like, I have to wait. The age of this character is very important to me, like the being on the cusp of puberty, and like just like sort of that stage of innocence and sexual awakening and all that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to be aware of that casting, and it passes like in a flash with young women. So I just wanted to kind of wait, but we were eyeballing everybody's. I saw Sophia in a movie when how old were you when you did Desert Cathedral?
Gosh, I think I was 7.
Yeah, so I'd seen her in a movie when she was 7. And there was a list that Lesley and I had on Google that had actors, and like we look back at it now, there's like all these people who are just very old at this point. I mean, not old, but like way old for Sadie. And so it was many years of kind of watching the landscape.
I mean, for me, the most important relationships, presumably in casting, are obviously mother and daughter, and Sadie and Francis. So, you had Melanie and Sophia. I mean, did you just always guess that these two would work as well as they did together? I mean, it's so beautiful.
I do. I'm so happy with the way that their dynamic balanced each other, but it was definitely an idea from the script stage on that we needed somebody who was, that Sadie was going to be such a internal, dark, brooding character that we needed someone who was sort of lighter and who could balance that energy out and who could be the audience's sort of way into Sadie. And so that was always what we were looking for in Francis. And what we found in Keith.
Yeah. So can the two of you work about your process together? Did you immediately get on? How was it for you on set?
It was super fun because we were like we both liked animals and stuff. So it was hard. It was easy for us to get along. Well, it's easy for me to get along with a lot of people.
No, I would never have guessed.
Both of you actually have that quality.
Yeah. But it was really nice when I first met Sophia. I could already tell that she was a really nice person.
Thanks. Aww. I could tell the same about you. And yeah, I mean, obviously by just this, Keith is so fun to work with, and just makes set life so much fun. I mean, we were out there in the pouring rain and the dark, and Keith was like having a dance party, and I mean, he makes set life so much more fun. So thank you.
Was there an atmosphere of levity on set? Because you often hear, when a film is darker tone, that that there's a lot of laughter.
I think we tried to keep it light enough. I mean, there's certain exceptions. I think it's hard for an actor to turn around from like a jokey, dancey set to go do a scene like Sophia has to do when she does that what we call the dress scene where she confronts Cyrus. Like that's a really intense scene. So that was a pretty
no kidding. Can you talk about
somber
that scene?
Mood? I think around that.
I mean,
me or Sophia.
Yeah. Well, yeah, both of you. How was that scene for you? Because it's such an interesting scene that you're standing there accusing Cyrus of wanting to look at little girls when patently you're not a little girl. You are growing into a young woman. I mean, how was that for you?
Yeah, I was a little nervous, but the moment we started filming, it really didn't feel like a big deal. It felt like any other scene, and John Gallagher Jr. was just so great, and I was so comfortable around him, and it was a closed set, and everyone was just so. It wasn't a big deal, I feel like, and it was also my audition scene, my callback scene, so I was really confident with it, and I felt like I could just do it, and I don't know if that is a really good answer, but it was made really comfortable by the whole crew and the whole cast, and yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations around it before it was time to do it, and we did. ultimately shoot it 2 days before it was scheduled, which was
right.
so it was good. We'd had a lot of conversations in prep
Yeah,
it all of a sudden came up really quickly because Melanie had an eye infection, and so we had to give her a couple of days off unexpectedly, and so we were all just like, this scene doesn't have Melanie in it. We could do this scene, and it's a big one. We could get it done, and luckily Sophia and John were both okay with pulling it up and kind of doing it. We decided the morning of that we were going to do that.
I think it worked really well. I feel like because it wasn't planned for the last day, and I think that would have been a little bit more pressure just for everyone, just because it's such a big scene, and it would have been like, okay, here's the last day of shooting and this is what we have to do. But it was good, and then we had lots of scenes with Melanie after that, and I think it worked well.
Yeah, I tend to leave really big scenes to the end because I feel like when there's that much writing on a scene, it's nice for the actors to have had the most time to sort of connect with each other. But then when it gets down to the wire and we're doing this hugely important scene on the last day of a shoot, I'm like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
So you think I've learned my lesson. But
So what about their kiss then? Where was that in the shoot?
it was, I think, the third week. It was near the end. There was a lot of conversations around that too, just in terms of like, when's it happening? When do we have to do it?
So did you both want to get that out of the way?
Basically, yeah. Basically, yeah.
So how was it? It probably wasn't nearly as bad as you were thinking, right?
It wasn't really. I thought it was going to be way worse.
Yeah. But why did you feel that way?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know.
And I mean, keep in mind that Keith, you were 9 at the time, right?
Yep.
So he was like,
why? I'm like, why couldn't have we shot this scene when I'm 11?
Let's go back and do it again. Now that you're 11, let's go shoot it. The character was
taller.
You are taller. The character wasn't supposed to be 9, and I think you read as an 11-year-old.
So how was it for you, Sophia?
it was fine.
There you go. Yeah, no problem.
I mean, I feel like
you were reassuring him, telling him it was nothing to worry about.
I don't, was I? I don't really remember.
You were asking me about it a lot because you were clearly like, it was you were nervous about it. And then you overheard that and you were like, I'm nervous about it too. You were sweet. So I think you guys were both lovely with each other and supportive in that scene and all the other ones too.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I love about the film is that you never know where it's going. You know, both of those particular scenes, you have no idea that, and the subtlety of, Sadie never reveals the big secret of what she's witnessed. We never meet your father. I mean, I just thought it was so beautifully done, and I'm just wondering if those were elements that were there in the script from the get-go.
Definitely, those that you mentioned were in the script. There was we had conversations over the years of introducing the father character at some point, but I liked the fact that he was this very strong presence who guided so many of Sadie's actions and Rhea's actions, but like that you didn't get to meet him. He's actually played by our key grip, Mike.
No. Wow.
He's all over our trailer. It's really weirding out the film community of Seattle. But
wow.
But I just thought he had the same eyes as Sophia and kind of tied her in with Melanie. But yeah, there's a lot of we definitely played with levels of how much to give the audience when we were doing the edit. About like what she does at the end of the movie, the action she takes, and how intentional it feels or not intentional it feels, and how much her mother deduces. There's a lot of scenes that we shot everything that would be like, here's all the information, audience, and then we would trim them back with every feedback screening that we would have to see if people would still get there enough. So we didn't feel like we were just slamming them over the head with this information. Like there's scenes that are on the cutting room floor where you see her like find the pills and look at them, and you see her mom finding the pills in the garbage. They're the pill canister. So there's a lot of things that we just kind of peeled back to try to keep that more subtle and just more about their emotional states at the end as opposed to
And even as you see the cogs turning in Ray's head at the hospital with Carla, you know, why were you there? You know, still that is not addressed, which might have prompted an audience member, I'm sorry, your question's fallen on the floor, to say, could there be a sequel? And we want to see, you know, I want to see more of these people. I want to know
I
more.
love that. We showed this film to a high school outside of Seattle, and the kids who watched it, and we had this long, hour-long discussion afterwards, which was really wonderful. And they started talking about the Sadie cinematic universe and how they just wanted to see all these prequels and sequels, and like Tony Hill's character, like how did he come to drive a Prius? You know, like all these things.
Yes.
So there's
so funny seeing the Prius in the context outside the RV. It's like, oh, yeah.
It really sticks out. It's the only car like it.
Yes, and we haven't talked about Tony. I mean, he's extraordinary, obviously. How did he come on board? Who doesn't?
I had seen him obviously in Arrested Development and Veep, but I had a friend, I still have a friend, who made a film with Tony called Brave New Jersey, where he's the lead, and it's comic, but it's also dramatic, and I felt like Tony's performance as the lead in that was so good and so understated, and it just really gave me a lot of confidence to offer him this role. And he and Melanie had worked together for one day on another project and just bonded very heavily, and so they were both excited to work together again.
Yeah. And what about the themes of addiction and bullying? I mean, obviously these are both, you know, epidemics in this country and worldwide. Were these particularly important topics for you to include? Yeah,
I mean, they were organic to what I wanted to say around Sadie's storyline. They just kind of built out from that in a really organic way. Because, you know, as I said, I wrote this in 2009, so the opioid epidemic was obviously around at that point, but it's exploded since then. So it's felt like now it's just like a very big topic to have as, you know, a sort of a part of a movie at this point. But yeah, you know, the fact that he has this, you know, crippling issue outside of his relationships with the other characters, I felt like was something that he had sort of a weakness that Sadie could exploit. And that was something I really wanted. And then I really wanted her to have a friend that she could protect, so we could start seeing sort of how her mind worked and the black and white thinking and the lack of consequences that she faced for some of her more outlandish actions over the course of the arc of the story. So Francis's bullying was sort of, that was where that came into it.
Yeah. And how were those scenes for both of you, the bullying aspects? Because when you bring your backpack with the gun again, nobody saw that coming, and it's so alarming and frightening, and of course you think something horrific is about to happen.
Right. Yeah, I've talked with a lot of people who were saying that they were so surprised that the gun never went off through the whole film. And that's really sort of eye-opening to me, because it never occurred to me, and I don't know why it never occurred to me, but I think just because I knew that that's not who she was, but I can totally see, I totally see that, and I think it was such an important thing to bring in and to not have continue, and I think it shows her character really well that she would bring something like that in, and then just as a threat, she doesn't think anything of it, and her whole frame of mind about no consequences. But for me filming it was, I mean, just from like a parental view, there was no gun. I was not with them.
Nope.
But no, it was it's a really powerful part of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a PA who was sort of Sophia's height, and she ended up being a double for all the, you know, a lot of the hand stuff with the gun and various other moments. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, can you two tell us what else you have coming up, and then we'll hear from Megan.
Go first? Yeah, go first. Okay, me. Okay. I currently do not have any like film or TV things going on for me. I'm just auditioning, and
that's about to change.
Thanks. I'm hoping for something, maybe a comedy. Who knows?
Yeah, well, exactly.
But yeah.
But was it easy to leave this behind? Because it is quite a dark project.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a fun filming process, and I feel like I haven't left it behind because I get to do stuff like this, and I have been since we were filming. So I feel like Sadie will always be a part of me, just like Lane from Lane 1974 is always a part of me. And yeah, I just feel really lucky to be part of the project. And yeah.
And you, sir?
Well, what? Well, I just got done shooting a movie called Good Boys.
Yep.
Seth Rogen produces it.
Yep. With
It's
Jake
like
and
an
Tremblay,
explicit
right?
comedy.
Oh. And do you do a lot of talking in that, or a lot of expressions, or both?
Yeah, there's a lot of talking and words and conversations. Yeah.
A lot of kids in that also.
Well, it's about, I'm one of the boys. It's about 3 boys on the cusp of becoming teenagers. And one boy, his dad tells him not to use a drone, and he flies it anyway and breaks it. And then we steal drugs from these girls. And
okay,
you'll see it better in 2019.
Yeah, cool. And what about you, Megan? This is your 6th movie. You're such a fantastic talent. What's next for you?
Thank you. Well, so yeah, Sadie was such a. It's funny because I made this film, The Off Hours, that went to Sundance in 2011, and at that point, I was saying Sadie would be my next project, and then I kept making other movies, and then after all of them, I would be like, the next one I'm going to make is Sadie, and it took all these years to finally come together. So it feels like this big item that's been on my to-do list for so long. Yep. I mean, it sounds like casual to say it that way because it's so meaningful to me. But so I've been sort of taking an opportunity to do some episodic directing and getting into that. I got an opportunity to do a couple episodes of the HBO show Room 104 in the first season, and that opened some doors for me in television. Another Mark Duplass favor, and well, not favor, he hired me.
Exactly, come on.
But another way he's impacted my career, I should say. But then I did an episode of this show called Graves with Nick Nolte, and then Animal Kingdom.
I'm sure that's a whole other story, Nick Nolte, but we don't have time for it, sadly.
I loved working with Nick Nolte. He was great. And then I've just been developing my own stuff, and I have a project in development with Steven Soderbergh, which is very exciting.
Wow. Ooh,
but I can't say any more than that.
Nope.
So that's a little tease for you.
All right. Well, on that note, tell your friends the film opens in LA and New York on October the 12th, and you can get further details on their website, sadiefilm.com. Thank you very much, guys.
Yes, thank you. What a great audience.
Thank you.